Begin, I would like to go through a few housekeeping details with you. First of all, please mute yourself during the presentation. Next, please turn your video off to reduce distractions for the audience. And to get the most out of the presentation, we recommend using the full screen with speaker view and try to minimize your gallery view to see the full screen of the presentation. Next, if you have questions for the panelists, please type it into the chat, and we have time at the end of the presentation for a Q&A session. And I want you to know that this session is being recorded so that others can view it at a later time. Well, let's get started with a welcome from Judy Hollis-Jones, the International President of La Dame d'Escoffier. She had planned to be here today, but had a conflict, so she has sent a recorded greeting.
You'll be hearing from lots. I'm Judy Hollis-Jones, President of the Board of La Dame d'Escoffier International, and I'm here to welcome you to the inaugural season of Table Talks with La Dames, a new venture for our organization and an exciting one. Through the month of March, you'll be hearing from lots of members and guests about exciting topics to deal with women in business in the food, beverage, and hospitality industries. Today, we have the inaugural session of our inaugural season. So a real treat, presented by the Minnesota chapter of LDEI. Today, you'll be hearing from 3 entrepreneurs who will talk about their path to success in their business, even in this pandemic year. So today, we'll hear from Amalia Moreno-Damgaard, from Amy Brown, and from Michelle Winchester. So I'll turn it over to Minnesota, and thank you so much for attending.
Thank you, Judy. And hello and welcome again to the fabulous female food and beverage entrepreneurs share their paths to success virtual panel discussion. I'm Ingrid Gangstead, the chapter board liaison for La Dame d'Escoffier International, and I'll be moderating this panel. It's great to be back among the Minnesota women of LDEI. I had been a member for many years of this chapter, and then I moved to Florida last year and had to leave the chapter. I know each of these women and their businesses, and it is really an honor for me to be among them to find out more about their careers. We'll be covering 5 questions through the presentation in the areas of starting and sustaining a woman-owned business. At this time, I'd like to introduce the panel. First, Michelle Winchester is founder and owner of Twin Spirits Distillery in Northeast Minneapolis. Welcome, Michelle. Amy Brown is founder and co-owner of Chowgirls Catering and also in Northeast Minneapolis. Welcome, Amy. And finally, Amalia Moreno-Damgaard is the founder and CEO of Amalia Latin Gourmet. Welcome, Amalia. So let's just get right into it with a warm-up question. This is all in random order. We'd like to hear, what are you currently excited about? It could be personal, business, or something else. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. So, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I am excited about the prospect of publishing my 2nd book this year. I spent a great deal of 2020 writing recipes, testing them, and also in photo shoots. I'm also excited about my son. He's graduated from Washington University in St. Louis this May.
All right, Amy or Michelle?
Sure, I'll jump in. I'm excited about a hopeful end to COVID and all the things that it brought us. And super excited that with that as well, having dinners in our home again with family and friends. My husband and I do a lot of dinner parties and we really miss them. We miss cooking with people in the kitchen. And then of course, being more around of our customers. We have a huge variety of customers and it's never a dull question that is asked or a story that's told. And we're really keeping our distance now and would like to get a little bit more of that. And then lastly, hugging. I miss hugging. And I didn't realize how much we all did it until we lost it. So that's the biggest thing I want back.
Great. How about you, Amy?
Well, aside from the obvious answer for a caterer, having the work that I do being safe and legal again, which is not during the pandemic, that's the core of what we do. I'm looking forward to seeing like the innovations that come about from a year without such gatherings. 3 years ago, Heidi and I attended NACE, that's the National Association of Catering Executives Conference in Palm Springs. And one of the keynote speakers, could not speak enough about how technology and virtual events was going to be like the future of our world. And we were just kind of like, okay, sure, whatever. So Heidi and I were just remarking on how like the pandemic and COVID really forced us into this a lot faster than I think it would have otherwise happened. So we can't wait to get back to serving the real people, but I'm also really like curious to see how it affects the way we gather and the different types of virtual offerings that we and other caterers will be offering in the future. I'm also interested in, we'll talk more, I'll talk more about it later, but about community food and food relief efforts that we've learned a lot about during this time and expanding our world in that realm. Those are all professional. Personally, I'm excited because my children are going to get to go back to school in April for a little while and be with their friends.
Oh, that's great. There's a lot to be excited about, and I share in your excitement. I'm excited about the prospect of spring and the vaccine. And like all of you, I look forward to the phoenix of the restaurant industry and see what emerges from the pandemic. It's going to be fascinating to see what creative food, beverage, and hospitality professionals offer in the near future, and then how that affects the long term, I think. Well, let's move into our second question or set of questions. This is more of a personalized question for each of you. Amalia, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about your story and share us what drew you to a career in the culinary industry after deciding to leave your career in the corporate world.
So gladly, and I'll be starting by sharing my screen. I like to draw your attention to the top left picture. This is me in Guatemala City, in my parents' home, with my play pal Paco. Paco is a nickname for Francisco in Latin America. Behind the innocence of this picture lies another truth. I was abandoned by my mother as a child after my parents got divorced, and I ended up living with my maternal grandmother for many years. I know that was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me. The picture in the middle left is my grandmother in her hometown. She looks like she's having a lot of fun. And the woman who inspired me to be strong and to become an entrepreneur. She was an entrepreneur herself, a very good cook, very health conscious, cooked all meals from scratch. And I helped her in the kitchen as a little girl. And without realizing it, I was learning kitchen lessons for life. She instilled in me my passion for fresh and healthy eating. She also inspired me to become a chef entrepreneur. The bottom left picture is me in Kansas City as a new immigrant at the beginning of my international banking career. This picture is so special to me. It was taken the day I became a US citizen, and that is why I am sitting at my desk wearing an Uncle Sam hat. What drew me to changing careers was that my husband, Ken, and I had a son, Jens, picture in the middle, and my priorities changed, including my career aspirations. And after 20 years of forming a strong business core in banking, I decided to pursue my true passion, which is Latin food and culture education. The logos on the left represent my entrepreneurial life. My business, Amalia Latin Gourmet, came about as a result of my experience of a lack of understanding and appreciation of the Latin culture in the US, which, by the way, the mission of my business was inspired by this. More about this later. I also co-founded Women Entrepreneurs of Minnesota, a 501c6 nonprofit fostering women entrepreneurship and diversity and inclusion through leadership education and mentoring to fill a business community need and to support other like-minded women entrepreneurs. This was almost 15 years ago. My business today is certified by WebInc, the national authority for women-owned businesses in the US. The picture in the middle is my second baby, my first book, Fostering Guatemalan Food and Culture Education, and winner of 9 international awards. I am publishing a sequel to this book this year. Education has been very important to me. St. Louis University is my graduate alma mater for international business and culture education. And Le Cordon Bleu helped me elevate my grandmother's wise culinary teachings to a higher level. My businesses are the sum of my Guatemalan background and worldwide travels, my corporate expertise, and my academic education. I value education so much that this became the foundation of my 2 businesses. To end this brief story, and in essence, Amalia Latin Gourmet is based on my mission and 3 verticals. I help organizations of all sizes bridge the gap and develop a broader understanding and appreciation of Latin cultural nuances using traditional, healthy, gourmet cuisine and culture as a platform for speaking, consulting, and cultural experiences.
Thanks so much, Amalia. Amy, I understand that the culinary industry is a second career for you as well. Tell us a little bit more about your inspiration for and the process of starting a catering company. Why a catering versus a restaurant? And what did you do that makes Chowgirls stand out from other caterers right from the very beginning?
So before Chowgirls, I had a pretty long career as a bookseller and a publisher rep. I worked in that field for nearly 15 years, 9 of which were spent being a sales rep for Random House Publishing. I was based in Chicago originally, but then I started coming to the Twin Cities and I fell in love and relocated here in 1999. That job was my dream job for so long, but I was starting to have children. It required a ton of travel. And so being a mom and being a sales rep did not really go hand in hand. So, I kind of just had in my head to pursue my real passion, cooking. I had literally almost no experience professionally doing that. I just knew I was a good cook. I've been cooking. My mother taught me to cook at a really young age. I just loved entertaining. So I had no idea where to start. Then I met the right person. And now I'm going to share my screen, I hope, even though I'm technologically challenged. Here's my share screen. Bear with me. Dun, dun. And again, all my worst fears realized as I try to share my screen and it's not working. 1 second. Not happening. I'll keep talking and I'll share my screen in a bit. So enter Heidi Andermak. Heidi's my business partner. We both recently gotten married when we met in 2003. I literally met her the day after I had my first child. But anyway, we were both newlyweds. We both recently planned our own weddings and we noticed a lack of really innovative, organic, which was both a priority for both of us, catering companies on the scale we were looking for. As newlyweds, we both acquired a lot of new dishes, cookware, stuff like that. And we were both having a lot of parties. So we admired each other's style so much that we started just having casual discussions about what it would be like to start a food business together. We thought, having a restaurant, do we have the nerve to do that at 34 years old? Neither of us really had the gumption to do that. We knew we didn't want to work the lines in the restaurant world alongside like men who were younger than us, like male chefs bossing us around. We knew that we would not be able to deal with that. So sort of hit us like, what if we just have a catering company? So when we'd known each other just shy of a year, we launched Chowgirls at a party with 200 of our closest friends. And then neither of us left our day jobs for a year or two as we built our business one gig at a time. As opposed to opening a restaurant, starting Chowgirls required very little overhead. Neither of us had the money to do it or the credit, I don't think, but taking out loans was not the thing for us. So with catering, you commit to one event, your client puts 50% down, you use that payment to cover the cost, and you hold on to as much of that second payment as you can to keep going. We just rented a kitchen on an as needed basis, and we just pieced it together as we went along. In 17 years, we've had a total of 3 commercial kitchens to ourselves. In the summer of 2016, we purchased a decades-old catering company called Joseph Catering, as well as its facility, which is an over 11,000 square foot building in the Midtown Industrial Corridor neighborhood of Northeast Minneapolis. We are finally catching up to the growth that had been chasing us all along. Our staff has grown as well, from just Heidi and me. And pre-COVID, we had a team of 130 employees. Our executive and management team, at this point, even with the pandemic, we have a company president who's neither Heidi nor me, a CFO, an operations manager, a sales director, a marketing manager, an IT manager, an HR manager, an executive chef, 2 kitchen managers and 2 sous chefs, as well as numerous other leadership positions, most of which, and this is what I'm most proud of, are held by women. Creating careers for females in the food service industry, where being female actually might give you an advantage, is one of my biggest points of pride.
That's awesome, Amy. Thanks so much for sharing that. Michelle, you were a producer of corporate media and then left to raise a family of 4 boys. What led you to jump back into the working world by starting a distillery? And I just have to say, when I read that question, maybe the answer seems obvious, 4 boys and distillery, but we want to hear.
Yeah, people often on tours would say, oh, I get it, they led you to drink. But no, they didn't. They were amazing. What really happened was I was realizing I was going to be turning 50 and my youngest son was going to be turning 13. Having the other ones before him, I knew that that was a pivotal point, that in terms of their independence, and that they would be, I would not be needed at home as much as I was. And so I could kind of do whatever I wanted. I also had a little push from, a few years prior to that, I had received a diagnosis of a rare cancer that I was able to get rid of via surgery. But I had a friend who, oddly enough, got the same cancer within weeks of my diagnosis, and his was not operable. And so he did not survive. And there was a little bit of him in my head saying, you're here, come on, step up and do something. So it was really him, his little voice inside of me, spurring me on quite a bit. And I went to American Distilling Institute conference, which is really where you go to learn everything you can about distilling. And I went there and went to a breakout session of women distillers, and they really got me going. I joke that they handed out Kool-Aid that we all drank, and because we all kind of walked out of it like all on the same page and all with the same kind of passion going forward. And I met a woman who's a consultant, hired her to be a consultant for me because I didn't have the experience. And many of these women at this breakout session also came from no backgrounds in distilling or beer making or cocktail making, yet they made it work. So I hired her. She really gave me my voice in this. And she did it by not answering my questions. She would give me just a little bit of an answer, and then I would kind of dig around and find out what felt right to me and made it my own kind of. And I really attribute so much of that to her, of her really like not just saying this is the one way to do it, because as we all know, everything can be done in many different ways. And so I really am glad that I used her to learn that about myself. And this is our 5th year of being open, and I'm going to try and share my screen, except I think I also don't know how to do it, but maybe I do. And this is just a montage of some of the stuff we have going on. We've got greenhouses in our parking lot now, and this is our main line is this M line, which does stand for Michelle, because your business is always you, right? And I'm really excited about the next years going forward. That's, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. These were very inspiring introductions to your businesses, and I can't wait to hear more. So our third question is more general for each of you. Amy, we'll start with you. You were saying that you were one of the first organic and green catering companies in the Twin Cities. Can you speak a little bit about the challenges and the benefits of running a truly sustainable business? And is there more to it than just simply using organic vegetables and sourcing farm-raised local meat? Amy.
Yes. I had to unmute myself, sorry.
Yes.
Apologies. Yeah, when Chowgirls got started, the organics trend was just beginning to get fired up. So this is 2003. Like I said, there were almost no choices for large scale catering with any sort of like green edge to it. So Heidi and I, in our personal lives, we already did these things to suit our own values. It's just dumb luck in the following years that the world followed suit. Sustainability. Running a company this way, I'm just going to be frank, it's a pain in the ass. There are way easier ways to do business. Committing to sustainability is a serious decision. It makes it harder to source your stuff, harder to earn money, and creates a whole new myriad of details to contend with. We always joke that we're actually a nonprofit business because working this way makes it really difficult to hold on to any money. But it's totally worth it to us in the end. It has really paid off for my brand. It makes you more mindful in everything that you do. And our experience in running our catering company this way is that we've created a sustainable organization that's earned the respect of our industry, our community, and most importantly, our employees. I just have some stats that these are even a few years old. I think they're really impressive that the average miles our ingredients travel is 37.5. We source our ingredients from 51 local purveyors. We make everything from scratch. We reuse many ingredients to make sauces, stocks, things like that. We helped launch a donation program with the county and then with Second Harvest Heartland, which I'll talk about in a little while. And one of these numbers that I'm most proud of is our waste diversion rate. That means things that are taken that could potentially have been in a landfill that are recycled or composted is 80 to 85% year after year. So it goes all the way to our landscaping. Our landscaping at our headquarters includes flower boxes with edible flowers, fresh herbs, sweet potatoes and sweet potato vine. This year we started a native prairie garden in the back of our building. We've got a really nice varieties going. And during the pandemic, we worked with a local farmer to build a really substantial greenhouse. I don't know if any of you here in the Twin Cities happen to see it, but it's in the parking lot of Indeed Brewing. We weren't doing any events in our venue, which is in that same location. So we took that opportunity to do something good. And we built, I don't remember the square footage of the greenhouse, but a really large one. And we were able to contribute loads of lettuces, cucumbers, peppers, and other veggies to our food relief efforts that we're started this summer. And also they contribute to the small amount of mostly prepackaged catering that we do. And I just wanted to speak to sustainability, not just being the way you grow or use food. It has to do with having a sustainable lifestyle for your employees. So long before the city of Minneapolis started requiring $15 an hour minimum wage, we were doing it years ago. But between that and offering them health insurance helps them sustain their well-being. Every time one of our staff members buys a home or has a baby on our health insurance, the pride that my business partner I feel is just immeasurable. So yeah, and also just having a business that we grew as quickly as, well, I don't say quickly, been together 17 years, but growing a business provides staff with many more opportunities than just being a cater waiter or a cook for the rest of their lives. Our community involvement as a company gives people the chance to get involved, to network, to advance their own connections and abilities. Before COVID, we had a quarterly volunteer program serving all kinds of regional organizations. And we just couldn't believe how many people wanted to get involved. So we just try to create kind of a culture of, living green, being a valuable part of your community, treating people well, and providing an environment for potential growth for everyone. Sustainable, safe, and sane are what we call the 3 S's, and we try to live by them every day at Chowgirls.
I love that. And for you to say that time has gone so quickly, and then it's been 17 years, shows that you really must love your business and love working at it.
We do. We've grown our business 21% every single year since 2003, with the exception, of course, of 2020. No surprise.
Awesome. Okay, I'll move to Michelle. You are the first one-woman-owned distillery in Minnesota. Can you tell us some of the challenges and the benefits of being a woman entrepreneur in the growing field of craft distilling?
Yeah, I would say that in terms of the craft distilling industry, it's a non-issue. Everybody's looked upon quite equally, but purchasing a property and converting it to a distillery was a whole nother deal, working with all of the city inspectors who had never had, I think I was the first owner of a property that converted to a distillery, and they were not very happy having a woman tell them something that they didn't know. It caused a lot of trouble and a lot of slowdown in the building process. And I ended up having to do that old thing of playing dumb and wording things in a way that made them feel like they were telling me the information. And I really gave myself a hard time for doing that, but I felt like it was the only way for me to move forward. And luckily we got through it. And I'd say a benefit, and then that's really the only place that there was a negativity about it. Otherwise, it's always a huge plus. Everybody loves to hear that I'm a one-woman-owned distillery, and I give high fives from everybody. And such excitement, and that really feeds my energy, actually, to have people get that excited about it. I also really love talking about being a woman-owned distillery to try and help empower women too. There definitely are people who have talked to me about, listening to your tour and you're talking about everything. I decided that I'm going to do this. It's something they were trying to do that they didn't, and it gave them some energy to pursue something, either a business or just acting differently. We're also really working right now on rebranding, or at least identifying our brand. And it's really interesting to talk to people about all that. And the woman-owned piece is so strong, but it's weird to find the balance of that versus all the other things that we bring to the table. We're pretty vocal with social issues and sometimes political issues. We have an impeachment time cocktail that's been on our menu for 3 years. And it brings in lots of interesting dialogue, and that's all good. But we're really trying to just refocus our brand so that we're in more places than, just people coming with us is very strong and vibrant. Now we need to have it happen more in liquor stores and restaurants and bars when they come back to their full bandwidth, and just really trying to grow more from where we're at. And that's it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'll go on to Amalia with your question. Is self-care important to you as an entrepreneur? And if so, what are some tips on shifting your mindset to making self-care a priority? And how can self-care drive better business results?
Yes, absolutely. As an entrepreneur, I live a fast-paced life, wearing many hats in my own business and also in my nonprofit and all the organizations I support. To prevent burnout, for me, it's extremely important to practice self-care to stay healthy mentally and physically, because the two are interconnected. I practice what I call simple therapy. In my home office, I have a small whiteboard right next to my PC with a list of my happy places. Visuals have always been helpful to me. Also, I take the time to relax. And on my own time, I go to my backyard on a lounge chair and I reconnect with nature. I also take a day or two off. I get a massage during normal times, take time off with my family, spend time petting my cats, watch my favorite shows, and I cook and read to relax. When things get hectic, I force myself to get to my quiet and happy places to prevent burnout. I find that when I take care of myself, I am more rested, more relaxed, more focused, have more energy, and I am fully charged to manage the daily routine and challenges that come with being an active entrepreneur. This, in the long run, can make you a better person, more productive, and a better businesswoman. And in the end, it can help drive better business results.
Thank you, Amalia, for that too, for sharing those ideas and really simple tips that maybe the rest of us can incorporate into our lives as well. We're going to move on to other questions that address the challenges and the pivots that you might have made in your career or quite recently during the pandemic. So Michelle, you have both a distillery and a cocktail room. And this distillery has been listed as an essential business, so it did not have to shut down during the pandemic. How did the shutdowns, though, affect your business, and what changes did you need to make to survive?
Yeah, you're right. The distillery did not have to shut down. We do get, I'd say 90% of our revenue from the cocktail room. So it was still very significant to have that shut down. And in the beginning, I remember having thoughts of, am I going to make it? I really wasn't sure. It was, you know, time moved at a different speed then. It was every day felt like, you know, a week. And I thought that all of this was going to take 3 months, ironically. I mean, I think I know a lot of us were a little naive about what was really happening. And so the government actually asked distilleries to make hand sanitizer and allowed us to jump some hurdles with permitting to do that. And so that's what we first started to do. It was kind of a depressing thing for me because we were taking alcohol that we would have made into drinkable alcohol into an alcohol that you could not drink. And it was a weird place to be in for a little while, but it was necessary and we did it. And then we really very quickly learned or figured out that we could make cocktail kits. And since the distillery was open, we could have people come and pick up cocktail kits to purchase. And that really was a huge saving grace for us and helped us get through until we were able to open for cocktail service. And people really, the loyalty and concern of the customers was really humbling to watch and to hear them give me feedback of, you know, make sure you say something on social media if you think you're going to fold. We want to help out. I'm buying a kit every week. You know, I'm going to spread it around to friends around the Twin Cities and drop it off, and just really amazing things like that. And then we were able to open our patio, which really used to be our parking lot, but we turned it into a cocktail patio. And all of my staff did not want to come back in June when the state allowed us to do that. So it was my family that opened it up with me. My husband bartending, my 2 sons working with me, and we were the ones that got the cocktail service going. And we were really careful about making sure that we were wearing masks all the time, even though we all lived together and didn't need to. I wanted to project how safe we were being, and we had more than enough space between tables than the state allowed. I have a safety issue. I don't want it, and so I just over distanced it. And then my staff came back at the end of their additional money that they were getting from the government in July, I believe. And then we realized at the end of summer that I was never going to open the cocktail room in the foreseeable future because it's such a small space. I wasn't comfortable with that. And so we pretty quickly started buying greenhouses. So it would be like an individual size space for a table. And I thought, boy, it's going to take a lot of convincing to get people to come in Minnesota to a cocktail, to have cocktails in a greenhouse. And in the end, it was even worse because, well, one, people were prepared because there was another shutdown in December and it required everything to be outside. Nothing could be inside. And our greenhouses were still in their enclosed state. They were considered inside. So we had to remove 2 walls to every greenhouse in order for people to use them with no heat in just half of December, half of January. And they did it though. People came out and did it. They came out and sat at fires, and it's been kind of amazing to see this happen. And we didn't have to do any convincing because everybody ended up being in the same boat. And people you could tell, like, especially during our real cold spell, people were like, I'm going to be part of the people that did that. And they could say, I sat at a fire at negative whatever. So it ended up being decent for us.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. I'm going to turn it over to Amalia. How did the pandemic affect your business and how have you managed to survive? What does it take to run a sustainable business for the long term?
So February 2020, I had a business pipeline through the end of November and had several pending contracts. Nearly all that vanished by April, and what remained turned virtual. I just embraced what came my way. My corporate clients started requesting virtual presentations to keep their teams engaged during what seemed to be the worst part of the pandemic, the first 6 months. I am grateful that these kinds of requests kept coming my way because they have gone from local and national to international. We're lucky to be in Minnesota where there are so many global companies. I have also managed to form a valuable partnerships, I should say, with local organizations, either supporting them in their worthy causes or serving on boards. Staying connected has always been very important to me and for my business as well. I am starting to see more activity in 2021. Some business has come back, although virtually. And what is important is that it's business from returning clients. I have pivoted by creating programs online, and trends indicate we will continue to operate in a hybrid business environment. So I am optimizing my operational systems to continue to thrive, even during the most challenging time in our history. What it takes to run a sustainable business, in my opinion, is to pay attention to the trends in our industry, our market, and the business environment, and update and adapt quickly to allow you to stay in business for the long term.
Thanks for sharing that, Amalia. Really interesting and insightful. Amy, I'm going to turn it over to you. The very nature of your business, which is catering, has essentially been outlawed in most states due to the pandemic. It's hard even to put those words together, catering and outlaw. But Without weddings, house parties, or corporate events, how has Chowgirls stayed afloat?
Well, this is a really long and complicated answer, but to start with just a fun, kind of not funny, it's funny now, but the timing of the shutdown here in Minnesota could not have been worse for us as a company. We'd spent nearly a year planning what we'd hoped would be like the crown jewel of any party we'd ever thrown. It was a Sweet 16 themed 16th business anniversary party for our friends, family, customers, colleagues. We had like over 325 RSVPs. Literally the food had been prepped, the stage had been set, like the room had been set, flowers, everything. When it just kind of became clear, like through the media, that wasn't going to happen based on our own gut feeling. This was on March 12th of 2020. So right before the governor called everything off, we had to call our own party off the day of the party in good conscience. So we turned it into a really elaborate staff party. We'd all been together day after day working anyway. With some family members there. Who did show up was the 18-piece big band. They actually showed up. So we could really call it a big blowout party, even though it was a fraction of what it was supposed to be. It was really our last splash. We haven't done any in-person events since then. But anyway, 3 days later, we were officially out of the catering business temporarily with no idea of how long it would go on. We laid off over 100 people and just hunkered down. Basically hunkered down in a complete state of panic, as I'm sure many of you did if you're in this industry. But then we had basically a miracle. Liz Mullen, our executive chef, she'd been working with Second Harvest Heartland, doing some consulting work for a kitchen they were building. She just did on a personal level, had long been concerned about food waste and hunger. So when we were all busy saying our goodbyes, she called some friends up at Second Harvest Heartland, which for those of you, if you don't live in the Twin Cities, it's our regional branch of Feeding America. So like I said, she'd been consulting with them on a few different projects. During Super Bowl 52, she helped consult and create a food rescue program for post-Super Bowl to prevent food waste. And then Terry Ebrey, the CEO and programs officer at Second Harvest Heartland, consulted with their CEO and a couple of prominent restaurant people in the area. And a few days later, Chowgirls and a couple other restaurants launched Minnesota Central Kitchen. Basically, we became the recipient of all the restaurants' overstock as they were closing shop. Like, what are we going to do with 600 pounds of seafood? All these really beautiful, fancy ingredients came to us. It was like being a contestant on the Food Network on a game show, like tailoring meals around whatever you could get. We had a lot of really unexpected ingredients. Like we literally had a half a ton of mushrooms show up one day. But since then, when most of our ingredients were all donations, we've allowed a small budget for necessary staples to keep things moving and people fed. And this is loosely based on Chef Andre on the East Coast, his World Kitchen concept. We now employ over 180 chefs in over a dozen different catering and restaurant kitchens in the metro area. As far as Chowgirls goes, it's kept our current number of staff at around 65, so we went from like 30 to 65 with this, and it's definitely kept our lights on. As a whole, Minnesota Central Kitchen has produced 1.32 million meals, which is about over 20,000 a week. We personally at Chowgirls do 9,000 meals a week. And overall, the project has rescued over 1.4 million pounds of rescued food. So we do hope at Chowgirls to create a second branch of our business in future months, a 501c that does strictly food relief, or as we call it, community food work. It fits well into our values, and we already have started working with some other nonprofits to see if something we can always do, as sadly, the need will never end. We've also launched Chowgirls Mercantile during this pandemic, which is like an offering of cheese and appetizer boxes, take and bake holiday meals for two, cocktail kits, like Michelle mentioned. We have our own that don't have the alcohol in them because we can't sell the alcohol, but some cool mixers. We're also doing virtual experiences that can be purchased online. All these can be purchased online without the assistance of our sales team, which is new for us. so e-commerce kind of. A portion of the proceeds of these items we feed back into Minnesota Central Kitchen. But we did know we had to keep some catering offerings on the table, lest we be forgotten for what's made us famous in the first place. But like Michelle said, safety, number one priority. When other catering companies started returning to events, we just really held back. We just couldn't put our staff out there and put them at risk. So as the state's mandates loosen up and the vaccine becomes more prominent, we hope to get back to our original work of making celebrations special, starting as soon as next month, but we'll always go with the numbers, even at the risk of disappointing our customers and clients for safety's sake. It's been a long road, but I'm proud that we've survived, innovated, and thrived the way that we have. It's really shocking to even me, but I couldn't do it without the crazy smart team that we have.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy. That's been quite a pivot for you. I want to remind our attendees to add your questions to the chat, and then we'll go on to our last question for each of you. What advice or tips would you give to people like us to take away, or perhaps something that has worked well for you during this time or throughout your career? Amalia, why don't we start with you?
What has worked well for me is to stay focused and engaged in good things. I contribute, I give my time and talent to help others. I look constantly for ways to improve myself personally and professionally. I tell myself constantly that better times will come, because they will. I don't despair or give up easily. And what I mean by that is that sustainability applies to us personally and professionally. Every year, I take a close look at how my business did in the previous year, like probably many of you do. Then I tweak or phase out the areas that are not producing the results I expected. I love my work, and I am grateful to be in good health. And this is important to me to keep me going.
Thanks for that wisdom, Amalia. Amy, how about you?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes.
Sorry.
What advice or tips would you like us to take away? Perhaps something that has worked well for you, or just something to leave us with, either through the pandemic or just career learnings.
Great. For career learnings is kind of where I wanted to put that focus. One thing that Heidi and I said since we started doing this ourselves that was really the key to our growth is don't be afraid to throw a little bit of money at your own success. If you feel like you're getting, like if you're, say you're an early entrepreneur, I don't know if anybody on this call is, but we tell this to people who ask that kind of advice. What's the key to your success? Well, number one, if you start feeling successful and it's overwhelming for you, don't throw in the towel. Figure out a way to get a little revenue or whatever it takes to hire people who are smarter than you, maybe hire people with more energy, perhaps. Find them, hire them, and pay them well to help you grow your business has always been my mantra. And then once you've got it going on, keep it going. Don't be afraid to make investments in your company. You know, we raised everybody's salaries at a time when we weren't even pulling it. We very rarely pull a profit, but at one point a few years ago, we were just about to, and we decided to just increase everybody's wages by 20%. And it was really scary, but it brought everybody, like I spoke to earlier, up to that living wage of $15 an hour. And it's really, from there, we've had nothing but increased success. So that's one of my tips. And also, yeah, don't get overwhelmed personally. Some of Amalia's tips for stress relief and relaxation can really come in handy. And I'm only later in my life as a business owner discovering that stuff. And it's given me the longevity to running, yoga, things like that, giving me the longevity to keep going into my 50s here. So it's my tips.
Great tips. Thank you, Amy. And Michelle, we'll get your last minute tips and advice that you could share with our audience.
Yeah, I would say one of my biggest tips is to listen to your gut. That especially in situations when you don't feel like you're the knowledgeable person, your gut can really tell you a lot. And it's been something that really early on happened with me. I was reading something a lawyer wrote up, and I read one section and thought, that doesn't really sound right. And then I thought, well, you're not the lawyer, they are. They must know what they're doing. But then when I went over it with him, I said, can we just look at this one section? I don't know what it is. I don't understand it. And he said, oh my God, it's completely wrong. That's what's wrong with it. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. And I thought, okay, I will from now on always listen to what my gut is telling me and follow it. And it kind of comes across also in making spirits and in making cocktails, like to follow your gut on, even if something is really weird sounding, like we do a goat cheese infused gin. It's certainly not for everybody, but it has an enormous following, and I will tell you it's delicious, but it's kind of weird sounding, and some people are really put off by it. But I would say it's more successful than not, and just putting it out there with my staff too, of them paying attention to what their gut and instincts are telling them, and to share it and to have conversations about it. It's been a huge learning process, and I've had the same staff actually this whole time. So it's been a really big growth thing for us to do that, and to keep remembering to do it. Sometimes you get kind of caught up in all the day-to-day stuff that you're not like, wait a minute, let's take a moment and relook at this and refeel it out. So that would be my tip.
Oh, I love your answers too, Michelle. Listen to our gut. I think that's really good advice. I want to remind you to put your questions in the chat. We'll take a little bit of time to do that. And I have a couple of them, both addressed to Michelle right now. Are you still selling the drink kits?
We are.
Okay, would you pre-order those on your website or call? What would you do?
There's on our homepage of our website, there's a link for our online store, and it's all in that online store.
Do you ship across the state lines?
Not legally.
Okay. Okay. Here's another question, Michelle. Would you want to share how you plan to rebrand?
Well, that's what we're working on. The first thing that we started doing is coming up with a little tagline, and the one that we've kind of I think we're landing on. We're going to probably do a focus group, but fearlessly unique is kind of an idea that we're heading in. And we're just at the beginning of doing this. So we just know we're not selling ourselves well in the liquor store. So we know that it must be that we don't have a focused brand is what we feel like. So. Okay.
I think Amy is sending us her images in the chat that she had hoped to share. I'm going to see if I can share screen.
No idea.
Okay, I'm going to try it. Let's see.
I was just going to let people do it at their leisure if they like.
Oh, okay. Well, we have time if you want to just talk about. Oh no, I've got this silly. Maybe that worked. Can you guys see that?
Yeah, they're showing up.
I can see it. I just wanted to share an image of our facility for those of you who aren't here in town or haven't seen it. This is our building that we moved into in 2017 actually.
And it's beautiful inside too.
Yeah, we really put a lot of love and care into the property. You think, who even comes to your catering company? Well, people who do certainly are impressed that it isn't just a dirty kitchen with a little room off to the side where you can try a few things. We actually have a beautiful tasting room. Is there another image there? I think I shared two.
Yes, I'm trying to bring it up.
It's okay.
No.
Like I said on our little meeting before this official call, before this official Zoom, I feel like I'm 80 years old sometimes when I'm trying to do things like this. This is
Tell us about this one.
We were featured, Chowgirls was featured in National Geographic magazine in December for our work with Minnesota Central Kitchen. And this is just images of our two fantastic female cooks working in the kitchen. I'm going to send a link in the chat in a minute so everybody can look at that article. There's some really stunning images, and it's all about the Twin Cities and the wake of the George Floyd murders, the various food relief efforts that our friends and neighbors have been doing, including us. So it's really an honor to be featured there. The article really speaks to the hard work everybody's doing out there.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad we got to see those couple of images. I have a question for Amalia. Tell us about your next book, if you can share how this one's different from your first, if you can share that information yet.
Yes, what I can share is that my second book is a sequel to my first book. So what I mean by that is the core is Guatemalan. But what I do is I expand into the region of Southern Mexico and Central America, which is a cultural and historic hub and a very biodiverse area. I expand into more culture, more history, and all my recipes have pictures. That was a killer, but I did it. I don't know how. So the book will be out sometime, hopefully before early fall. We are completely done, thank goodness. And I am so excited and look forward to many events where I will be partnering with many organizations to launch it, to have parties. Hopefully some of them are going to be in person, but if not, they will be hybrid. So I will adapt. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, it sounds great. I see that Amy has put in the chat the link to that article. And Tanya, maybe I would ask that you copy that out of there and maybe paste it on the Minnesota LaDom's Facebook page, so that if we can't figure out how to get it out of the chat ourselves, that it will be there for us.
Thank you, Tanya.
Do we have, yeah, thank you. I don't have any other questions now unless something comes in, or if I didn't see a question. Anybody else? Okay, well, before we close, I just want to make a few personal comments, because I was going to do this at the beginning and I thought, no, I'll wait. But I wanted to share that we've been so fortunate to have this panel share their knowledge with us, because I know each of these people personally and how amazing they are. With Amalia, I think you can probably tell from her presentation, but anytime she walks into a room, there is increased energy, increased color and vibrancy. And she's just someone who gives back to her community so much. And actually all three of these women do. Michelle, you have been such a supporter of LaDom's in the past, and yet now. And I know that you support so many philanthropic efforts in the Twin Cities. And so that's so appreciated. And I think you also just make killer cocktails. And that is so unfortunate that right now your cocktail room is waiting to rebirth, I guess, or whatever it will take. But I wish I could get some of those cocktail kits. Just great. And as far as Amy goes, I have had the opportunity to have Chowgirls cater a few events in my home. And boy, their customer service of their employees, the innovative, creative food that they provide, all while being cost competitive with other caterers in the community, is just second to none. And just listening to your story of how you're paying your employees, I think it really shows, because they love what they're doing, they're creative and do a great job and are so customer focused. So we're so lucky to have you, and it was fun to dig deeper into your careers today. Thank you very much. So I also want to thank our participants for watching, and your support reminds us of the importance of the food and beverage industry and the vital role that it plays in our communities. Your attendance today also supports the mission of Minnesota LDEI, which includes offering scholarships and microgrants to women preparing for or who are already in the industry, as well as supporting community outreach programs such as the Urban Roots inner city gardening program for youth. This has really been an informative time for me, and I hope it was for you too. And I hope that I can see some of the rest of you also at other table talks with LDEI's events in March. This ends our presentation. So it's been great to have you all.
Thank you for being here, Ingrid.
Welcome.
Thank you, Ingrid, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a wonderful day.